Alright, we back. It's your boy Clips the General. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very, very, very interesting discussion, right? Today we got a video from the 8 at the Table podcast, and the title is Why Women Lose More Than Men After a Divorce. And there's a therapist that's a guest that's going to explain why he believes that in a divorce, women lose more than men. I'm very, very intrigued to see what this discussion is about. I saw a very small portion of this. I seen a clip of this a couple weeks ago, and I meant to do a reaction to this a while ago. Before I even, started this channel, I used to do like little small clips on Instagram or whatever. On social media. But yeah, we're gonna look at the video in its entirety, or maybe not in its entirety, but I want to get a sense of what what his mindset is in regards to this discussion. But hold up, before we get to that, you already know what I need you to do. I need you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because this definitely helps the algorithm push out my videos. But without further ado, let's get into it.
Women have the most to lose through a divorce. So therefore...
Wait, say that again, because this comes up all the time.
Aaron said, not Aaron Campbell.
Where men are saying, I see this every day in the comments. The reason why men are no longer seeking to get married in droves is because they believe that they have so much more to lose.
It's not true.
Am I wrong? You see this?
I mean, not in the comments, but I've definitely...
It's a general matter.
Yeah, as a general matter.
Any man with money, yes, he does. I don't care what clinical scientist has to say about that.
Okay, but that's assuming that it's...
No, we know this.
Maybe
if we take all men in general, because not, again, 85% of this country does not make $100,000 a year, so I can understand. But if we taking people who make money, only 5% of women make over 6 figures.
But that's such a small percentage of
the
people,
type
though.
of relationship where a man makes like a significantly amount more than a woman.
And we're also only talking about money. There's way more to lose than just
what
money.
About the custody?
Business.
So
the kids.
When a man or woman get divorced, in most cases, the women tend to have a higher rate of custody of the children.
True.
Right?
Which is unfortunate.
So that means that at any time she wants to go out, have some alone time, or go on vacation, and etc., she got to figure out what babysitting looks like. Okay. It's very, very easy for the partner that doesn't have the majority of the custody to just say, "Yo, I can make it today."
Bullshit.
Right? That happens. Hold on. There's more.
He's a new dad.
I'm a real dad, not a new dad.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 kids. 2 under 2. Do not recommend.
Oh, wow.
Right? And also, again, like having the children primarily with you requires that you are being more thoughtful about your schedule, where you could go to, and all of the responsibilities that requires.
I agree with that. I agree with that aspect. Being somebody that ended up in a situation where I have my kids full time, my youngest too. I see his point there. I see his point. Which is why when I did initially separate from my ex-wife, I always said that if I ran into somebody that they would have to at least have 1 kid so they can understand my scheduling dynamic and the way that I move around, because he's right. You don't have access to just get up and go when you have full-time custody of children. You can't just up and move whenever you feel like moving. So I definitely understand that part. I understand that part. If you're not the custodial parent, you kind of have the freedom to just move how you want to move. You feel what I'm saying? So he's right. He's right in that regard.
Your social circle and your support network tend to shame single moms. We've seen it all over social media. It's their main attack. You're a single mom, so something is wrong with you. Third, finances, your favorite subject. Men make on average 6 times more money than women. So that means this divorced woman has less income and more responsibilities when you tie in with the children. So on average, women have a lot more to lose socially, financially, and in terms of responsibility when it comes to males. Hence why they try very hard to maintain their relationship. On average, out of all of the infidelity couples that I have served, 99% of the first phone calls and consultation calls are initiated by women.
I kind of want to go back to
I can see that.
Dealing with the infidelity.
You
mentioned that men typically have a harder time when they're on the receiving end.
Yes.
Because they're not good with their words. They don't know how to put their feelings into words, do the work X, Y, and Z, whatever. Outside of the words and explaining how they're feeling, what is like the hardest thing that you see men trying to get over the hump, and like what's the hardest thing for women trying to get over the hump?
Oh, excellent question. So I would say that the one of the biggest hurdle that men are having and are trying to work through is having the vocabulary to express themselves, right? Because a lot of 96% of the time, the way you start a conversation is exactly how it's going to end. So there's a difference between saying you're selfish versus, hey, babe, lately I've been feeling neglected and unwanted. You're saying the same thing, but you need the right words and the feeling words because that's what your partner can identify. So if I'm...
that's a little shaky. I understand what he's saying, though. I definitely get what he's saying. But you also have to understand that there are some people in this world, not gender specific, there are some people in this world that no matter what you say or how you say it, it will automatically have some sort of defense behind it. You dig what I'm saying? Like I said, you could say, babe, hey, I've been feeling neglected. I've been feeling this, that, and the third. And then you sound like a girl. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, so you have to understand, and I can speak for a large majority of men that I know personally. The reason they say that they don't speak to their women or they don't address things with their lady is because of past situations where they have come out and tried to express some shit and they got crucified for it. And that's just what it is. There's no like people try to make it seem like there's like this big conspiracy around why a lot of men don't speak. There's no big conspiracy at all. We tell you why. Nobody gives a fuck. We directly tell you. That's why we don't talk. Nobody gives a fuck. That's why. There's nothing to figure out. There's no puzzle to put together. The reason why most men don't speak is because in their experience, when they have spoke and they have tried to address certain things, it fell on deaf ears, or they pretended to care in the moment, and then some later on down the line, that shit got used as a fucking Ginsu knife. It's just what it is. And I can guarantee you there are thousands of men that will agree with exactly what I just said.
You never and you always. That's me attacking you. And you're automatically going to defend yourself. So what I have found is that a lot of men are learning the vocabulary and as well as the skill and the science needed to properly express themselves. Now, in return, there is a lot of work also being done on their female partners to learn how to listen. Right? But it's easier to listen when emotional words and feelings are being used in personal attacks. Mm-hmm. It is not the receiver's responsibility to try to decipher what you're trying to say. Me saying you're selfish and I'm doing it from a space of love and I'm criticizing you and you're just supposed to not take it personal, that's impossible. We really need to stop utilizing these concepts that are not realistic and start to look at human nature and the impact of what we're doing, right? So it's very important to start a conversation properly, to label your feelings so that your partner has a sense and a time to understand. But here's the step that everybody missed. If we're together, right? And I just told you that I've been feeling neglected, unwanted, and that's really hurting my confidence and security in the relationship. How should you respond to that?
I think my question would be, no, Alan. I think my question would be like, what exactly am I doing to make you feel that way?
That's excellent, but not the right answer. So when somebody express themselves to you and have a complaint, the first thing you do is summarize. What I heard you say is that lately you have not been feeling wanted and desired in this relationship. And my lack of presence and words of affirmation have made you feel neglected. First step. Second step is I'm going to validate you to make sure that you feel understood prior to responding to you. I can understand what it feels like to be neglected and unwanted. I could clearly see how that is detrimental to the relationship and how that would affect the way that you view yourself and exactly the way that you feel in this relationship in terms of safety and security.
Mac, does that take?
That's actually good advice. That's actually good advice. I do believe a lot of things could be circumvented with like proper communication. I do believe that there are a lot of, and this may sound crazy, but I know a lot of relationships that end over the smallest shit. It'd be the smallest shit. And then by the time you realize you ended a relationship over some small shit, it's too late. You feel what I'm saying? It's like it's too far gone. You dig what I'm saying? Like, but I do believe, especially in, you know what I'm saying, our community. And by our, I mean, you know, the Black community. In our community, these are things that we are not taught. And these are things that if you don't seek this type of information as you get older, you're destined. 9 times out of you are destined to just be in complete turmoil, depending on the environment that you grew up in. If you grew up in an environment where there was no communication, there was no outlets for you, there was no sense of nobody teaching you how to regulate your emotions, nobody teaching you how to properly, you know what I'm saying, express your emotions and how you feel and all of that type of shit. If you don't know how to do any of that, you would never taught any of that, but you're not actively seeking how to fill those voids and actively seeking out how to fix those issues, you're probably destined for turmoil, and you just chalking it up to it is what it is, it is what it is. And then a lot of people that fall into those categories, most of them, in most cases, you'll see those people trying to play victim. Like, man, I ain't do shit wrong. I was, you know what I mean? Like, I like this conversation. I like this. I like where this is going.
Some form of emotional maturity, some emotional intelligence.
So I have one more step.
I never had that.
I had a question for this.
I have one more step.
Like, in real life. Yeah, you can definitely
TV, Mac.
Do the final step.
You can definitely do the final step.
Yes. Yeah. So the third step is, do you feel understood?
You asking me?
Yeah.
No, he's saying
after summarizing and I validated, I'm going to ask you, do you feel understood?
Yeah.
Because I cannot respond until you felt heard. If not, I'm going to share my perspective. Then you go back and share your perspective. We're not going to get nowhere because nobody's feeling understood. Right? So being able to sit back and be disciplined enough to hear you, make sense of what you said, and validate that. And validation does not mean that you agree. Validation means I understand. Conflict does not apply to agreement because we can see the same thing, have the same experience, but have two different perspectives of it. So it's true for me because it's subjective to me. My feelings are true and they're right, and your feelings are true and they're right. So we're not debating who's right or wrong. So that's why the validation and the understanding is needed before we can even proceed to have a conversation. So those are the 3 steps that most people are not aware of. And those are the 3 steps that requires the most discipline. Like, I'll be in session and the couple like, and they're turning away and they're moving their body. I'm like, how does the discomfort feel? Like, I just want to say what I want to say. I'm like, cool, sit with it. It's not time for that. Because that's what you need to create a masterful relationship. Not a mediocre, a masterful relationship.
Damn.
That's a good point. That is a good point. I've done that, and I've done that subconsciously my whole life. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I have done it. I literally have no explanation to why I do it. But for some reason, when my lady whoever the woman may be at the time, when they come to me and they want to discuss something, right? And we're having a discussion, the minute that I feel the conversation going left, I just listen. I listen because I know, and I didn't realize this until I got older, I know that in the heat of the moment, nobody is listening to understand. They're listening just to rebuttal. You feel what I'm saying? So a lot of times when couples have arguments, nobody's, especially if there's yelling and voices are elevated, nobody listens after that. Once voices start elevating, nobody is listening to understand. Nobody, man or woman. They're not listening to understand. Once the octaves raise, all understanding goes out the window. And they're just like, I just got to get the last word, or I got a rebuttal to whatever the fuck you just said. You feel what I'm saying? So for me, I feel it's better for me if I get quiet, I get silent, and it's okay. But I'm actively thinking about everything that's being said. And it's like, even if I did have a rebuttal, in that moment, I'm not going to rebuttal it. I'm not going to say it. I will not say it because it's going to fall on deaf ears. And I know that. I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. I've lived it to where we're having a discussion with going back and forth. Her voice is getting louder, but I'm still trying to get my point across. She's not hearing shit because she's just trying to get the last word, or she's just trying to get her point across. She's no longer listening to what the fuck I'm saying. So it's pointless. It's pointless. And at that point, you can have a whole discussion back and forth and then come back to the discussion 3 or 4 days later when tensions are lower and everybody's back to being mellow, and you'll say something like, yeah, well, when I said this, that, huh? You said that? You dig what I'm saying? So that's a good point.
I hope y'all gonna bullet point these on the.
I hope so too, because
honestly, I would have been like, what
emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Matt, can you talk, because that takes a lot of emotional regulation, not even just the emotional intelligence and maturity to get to that point, but to be able to get to the point where, because our natural reaction is to get into defense mode. It is a natural human reaction. Yeah, because when you're in a relationship, right, and your partner comes to you with something that is like, I'm dissatisfied or I'm angry or I'm upset,
but
right?
That's not critical.
But you get
in the
defensive.
defense.
So how do you get your clients to get to the point where they can regulate some of those emotions?
Okay, so I think that we're having a misconception of what defensiveness looks like. If I attack you, you're gonna defend yourself. If I'm criticizing you, you're going to defend yourself. So me saying you're selfish, you don't care about us, you don't care about this family, it's going to force you to defend yourself, because that's the human reaction to being criticized. But if I'm saying I feel neglected and undesired, I'm not attacking you. So your need to defend yourself is not as high as the previous statements.
But still there, though.
That's not necessarily
Some
true.
of it is there, but not to the same degree that you feel like you want to tell me that I'm wrong.
Wait, time out.
True.
Because every man is going to tell you, listen, we've been in relationships that we've went about this way. And even it got to a point in my personal life, previous relationship, where I was like, yo, you know what? How I try to speak to this person, they don't receive it.
Nope.
I called my best friend. I said, yo, you already know what's going on. You know the situation. You might be able to say things differently than me, right? And we can say things differently with no attacking, no you words, no direct words.
Right.
Everything is going to be on my end. And it still can be taken as an attack.
Of course.
Don't tell me, show me. So make a statement right now.
So what I'm saying is, wait.
No, I'm here. I got you.
Breathe. So let's say if I said I felt neglected, I felt you didn't, or I felt I was not being heard in the conversation that X, Y, and Z happened. And the first thing that always happens is, so you're saying,
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're saying, I don't understand you.
Correct.
And then, and what I'm trying to say is now with what Marie is saying, is it's not emotional regulation on one side. It's emotional regulation on both sides. Because I can do all the practice that I want. I could use all the proper precautions, precautionary words and vocabulary. But if the person still deems it as an attack, and I'm not going to lie, I feel like I say a lot of things and people say a lot of things and women hear only one part of it and then turn it to a whole nother thing. And always my first question is that what you got from what I said?
And that is a fucking fact. That is a fact. Fellas, how many times have you had a discussion with your lady? And it ain't even got to be your lady. It could just be a female. And pardon me, because they get all butthurt over female. But how many times have you had a conversation with a woman, right? And let's just say you were speaking for a whole 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, but she only heard 30 seconds of it. That was it. That shit happens often. Like, often. Like, I hear a lot of people, women in particular, I hear a lot of women talk about emotional intelligence, and a lot of them don't even have that shit. Like, real talk. Listen, I call a spade, man. I hear a lot of women talk about emotional intelligence because it's the new thing. And a lot of them don't even have that shit themselves. And you see it within their conversations. You see it all the time. They arguing. They don't listen to understand. You know what I'm saying? They'll bite a motherfucking head off just for saying the slightest little word. They get triggered by the smallest things. You dig what I'm saying? Like, he's absolutely right. And I have lived it. I've actively lived it. So he is telling 100% facts.
And then we try to unpack the whole thing. So the emotional regulation is not always on the guy's side.
Agreed.
And I think that's one thing that we have to be understood, because in my notes that I've taken,
he was down there.
I heard a lot of things and I'm like, whoa. So one of the key things that you said was feeling words, right?
Yes, sir.
And my issue with feeling words is usually, first of all, people know how I feel about the word feelings. You know, usually the feelings are derived, basically a social construct of what you should feel or how you should take certain things that are being said. It's all a social construct, which then becomes a one-sided thing. Because now if I say X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, one woman can deem it this way, one woman can deem it that way, and now I'm literally the person trying to figure out, how do I speak to this person? And sometimes it doesn't matter how you speak to a person, whether or not, doesn't matter how you speak to a person, because whether or not, whichever avenue you go, they cannot receive it the way that it needs to be received.
And that's a fact.
Good point. And that's why it's called couples therapy, right? Not only am I coaching you how to identify your feelings and how to express yourself, but I'm also instructing your partner on the proper way to respond, right? Because that's not natural to us, right? It's not natural.
Right.
It's not natural hearing how my behaviors impacted you. I automatically want to say, no, that's not true, because from my perspective, it's not true.
Right.
But we're not speaking of agreement, right? So a lot of couples tend to get stuck on the validation because they're arguing agreement. So you're right. You can try your best and be the best communicator in the world, right? And label and do all of the steps that I said at first. But if your partner doesn't learn how to listen and how to respond, then it's not going to be effective. Hence the term couples therapy. All of the partners in the relationship must be present because the knowledge and the skill must be applied to everyone.
And I
Hey, that's heavy. That's heavy. That was a good conversation, man. That was a good conversation. Real talk. And I agree with that last portion as well, because if it's like I said previously, right? If you grew up in an environment where you're not taught certain things, then the only thing you have to go off of is what you know, right? And if your entire life, anytime somebody said something to you, the only thing you knew how to do was defend it, that's just what you're going to do. If you've never been taught to articulate a certain way, if you've never been taught to, and I know this is heavily with men. We are not taught how to articulate our feelings. We're not. That's just something we have to learn as we get older, as we grow, as we mature. We have to learn the proper way to express our emotions, right? And we also have to combat past traumas of being vulnerable and expressing our feelings and having them shits chopped to fucking pieces. You dig what I'm saying? And dismissed and thrown to the wayside like, yeah, well, if you wouldn't have did this, I wouldn't have did that. Oh, well, I'm sorry you feel like that, but if you didn't do this, I would, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's we have to combat that on top of already being taught that it's not manly to fucking even talk about your feelings or express your feelings. So it's a lot of things that men deal with in regards to expressing emotions, right? That we weren't taught and that we're trying to learn now as we get older, while also at the same time combating all of that bullshit, which is no excuse. Listen, I give no excuses. You feel what I'm saying? We grown. We are grown. It is up to you to do the work. Granted, you weren't the one that broke yourself, but it's your job and your responsibility to fix yourself. Nobody else's. You feel what I'm saying? So I feel like this conversation is a conversation that needs to be had, right? So I'm gonna put the link to that video in the description box, and hopefully they have more conversations like this. You know, I believe like conversations like this are conversations that I actually enjoy, because it teaches instead of just a bickering back and forth. There's actual lessons to learn. There's actually something positive to learn and something positive that comes out of these conversations. These type of conversations are dope. But that's the video for this week, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all of that good stuff. And I'll catch y'all on the next one.